بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين. Chapter 21 verse 107. Sadaqallahul Aliyyul Azim. And we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to the nations. Now, what does that mean? And that's what we've been looking at over the last few weeks. And this is our seventh podcast, seventh khutbah in that series. I think I will do one more and then move on to some other topic. The Holy Prophet was, and elsewhere, the Holy Quran says that in the Prophet of Allah, we have for ourselves the best exemplar. And so I've taken the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad and I'm going through it, sort of stage by stage in a way, trying to cover different stages of the Holy Prophet's life. And now, in a couple of khutbahs, what I want to do is look at how the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what his character was like under different circumstances and situations. Like last time, we looked at him as a general, as a leader leading his soldiers. But this time I want to look at his qualities in general. Now, I've mentioned this before, that the Holy Prophet Muhammad was a brave man. And this is not just theoretical bravery, but in practice. I've mentioned the time that the Holy Prophet and Hazrat Abu Bakr were hiding in this cave, and people looking for them to kill them got as far as the mouth of the cave. But the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was still calm and collected. Muslims generally were brave at that time. Hazrat Bilal, he used to be laid down on the ground, on burning sand, and then stones and rocks would be put on his chest to make sure he could not move. And he would be asked to say, remove these in the name of Samad, Lat, or Manat, and so on. And he would just cry out, Ahad, Ahad. One, there is only one, meaning there is only one God. And Hazrat Ali, Holy Prophet says to him, take my cloak and lie in my bed, so people who come to kill me think that I am asleep. How did Hazrat Ali know, Raziallahu Ta'ala, know that they were actually going to remove the covering to see who was sleeping? They might have just assumed that it was Holy Prophet and they struck and then raised the sheet. So all of these things, all of these examples show how brave and courageous Muslims were at that time in facing their enemies. And the interesting thing is that Muslims didn't respond with violence. Now we have two types of Muslims. One who are too embarrassed to be Muslims, who want to adopt everything that they see in the society around them. If they could do it, well, they do it. Girls do it, actually. I was going to say they'll go and buy Dulux Brilliant White and paint their faces white. But we do have girls who slobber their faces with the Tibet Snow whitening cream to look white. But anyway, another time, getting back to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, Muslims were fighting some tribe. And Muslims, as happened in those days, were fewer in number. And they began to retreat. Now, what happens when an army retreats? Everyone runs and tries to run as fast as they can, so that they might get away from people pursuing them to kill them. What did the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam do? He was riding a camel. He stood up on the back of that camel and called out to the opposing army, here I am Muhammad, I am the Prophet of Allah, I am the Messenger of Allah. I don't retreat. I don't care about anyone else. Does an army general in this world expose himself to this danger? They would all climb down from the camel, change into a soldier's uniform to disguise themselves and run. And yet the Holy Prophet Muhammad, he stood up on the back of the camel. Just think about it, there was another reason. And that other reason was that he was trying to save the lives of his companions who had panicked and who were trying to flee. I mean, what did Hitler try to do during the Second World War? He tried to have Churchill assassinated. What did the British try to do during the Second World War? They tried to have Hitler assassinated. And we know that Churchill had a lookalike, and he was assassinated in error. The person killing him thought he was killing Churchill. And yet, there is this person at this time of danger. He climbs on top of his camel, stands on the top of the hump, and says, "Why are you killing those people? I'm the one you want to kill, and I won't move from here." This is what it means to be a Muslim. What it means is that at time of difficulty and danger, you do not retreat. You do not run away. You stand your ground and you face the difficulty, whatever might happen. You think if you ran away and God wanted you dead, you'd save your life? You wouldn't. What has been decreed will happen. But that doesn't mean to say, of course, that you go down and lie down on the fast lane on the M4 in front of a hurtling lorry and say, "Oh, well, whatever's going to happen, if it's decreed that I die here, I die." And you unpack your sandwiches and your bottle of Coke and start having your lunch. But it means that at times of danger, although you take precaution, you don't show cowardice. You know, people talk about, someone wrote to me and said, "Oh, my kids, they're, at university and there are very few Muslims and so on." When I went to university, there weren't any Muslims. I was the only Muslim in the whole college. In my halls of residence, I was the only Muslim in the first year. In the second year, there were 2 or 3 more. But did I give up? Did I compromise? They were still friends. They were, Christians and Jews and Hindus and so on. They were my friends. We ate together, we played squash together, we went to swimming together. But because they knew I was a Muslim and I didn't drink, not one single one of them ever offered me a drink. And so on. There are many other examples. But I shudder to think, if I become some sort of an example for people to follow, it will just show how far Islam and Muslims have fallen. And then the interesting thing is that if you take the opposite side of the Holy Prophet's situation, when there were peace, he was unimaginably compassionate and merciful. We've already spoken about the Battle of Badr, when prisoners were brought to Medina. And the Holy Prophet consulted everyone. And that's another thing I've already commented upon, that he did not just make unilateral decisions. So what did he do? He said those who were poor, we let them go. No compensation, nothing. Those who are rich, well off, well, they have to compensate us for our loss as much as they can. Not so much that they become poor and beggars and so on. And those who have some other quality, those who can read and write, will teach Muslims to read and write. So each person from the Quraysh who could read and write, he was given 10 Muslims. What's this called these days? It's called transfer of technology. In the US and other places, people want to sell you a car, but they don't want to tell you how to repair that car. It may be a car, it may be a tank, it may be an aeroplane or whatever. Why is that? The reason is obvious. As long as you don't know how to repair a car or manufacture a car, you are forever beholden to them. The Holy Prophet also always used modern technology. No, he didn't have iPads and switches and laptops and so on. But when someone said, the time of a battle, when someone said, well, in our country, to save people's lives, what we do is we dig a deep ditch around the town. It's got to be deep enough and wide enough so that cavalry can't jump across it. That was the technology in those days. The Holy Prophet immediately adopted that. Had a huge ditch dug around Medina. So when Medina was attacked by 30,000 people, there was nothing they could do because they couldn't cross the ditch. And eventually they left, and there was little or no loss of life in that encounter. And you imagine 30,000 people attack a town, and hardly anyone loses their lives amongst the attackers or the defenders. But there are other examples. People talk about blasphemy and the fact that we should behead blasphemers, etc. Do they think that at the time that the Holy Prophet Muhammad was preaching, there was no one blaspheming against him? There were poets in Makkah, there were poets in Medina. And Hazrat Umar and others suggested there was a very good poet and he was very handsome and so on. And people were attracted to him because he had such a good voice. And he used to write poetry against the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And a group of Muslims went to the Holy Prophet and Hazrat Umar said, we are going to go to that man and tie him down and knock out his teeth so that he looks ugly when he stands up and tries to speak. So that when he tries to speak, the sound that comes out of his mouth is not as beautiful as it is now. You know what the Holy Prophet said? He said, if you disfigure a man in this world, God will disfigure me in the hereafter. When Muslims marched into Makkah, these are the people who killed Muslims. These are the people who tried to kill the Holy Prophet Muhammad. These are the people who tortured Muslims. I told you the incident of Hazrat Bilal. When one time Hazrat Abu Bakr, who was a very rich man, went and saw the Holy Prophet was very distressed. And Hazrat Abu Bakr Radhiyallahu Ta'ala asked him what the matter was. And the Holy Prophet said he'd just seen Bilal being mercilessly tortured. And Hazrat Abu Bakr went and paid whatever the owner asked for Bilal and had him free. There were Muslims that their owners or elders of their tribe would tie one leg to one camel and the other leg to another camel and run the camels off in opposite directions, literally tearing them apart. They did this to many Muslims. So what did the Holy Prophet Muhammad do? People were throwing rubbish over his head, people were abusing him, people were humiliating him. So what did he do? Did he execute them? Did he put them in prison? In fact, he asked them, he said, tell me, what do you think I'm going to do with you today? And of course, they were terrified. He said, today peace has been established. You are all free to go to your homes. Today, no one will avenge anyone, any torture, any persecution. This was the example that he set. And he said, everyone is equal before the law. There was a girl who was caught stealing. And the Holy Prophet was about to pronounce punishment. And a delegation went to him and said, O Prophet of Allah, she is the daughter of a chief. And he has just embraced Islam. So if you punish her, then that tribe, that clan will leave Islam. So please, don't punish her. And the Holy Prophet turned round and he said, if my daughter Fatima had been brought before me with this evidence of theft, I would have treated her, I would have punished her in exactly the same way as I'm going to punish this girl. Do you think I depend on the chief of this tribe for my success, or do I depend on Allah? And that is the point that people forget, that we are forsaking Allah when we say, oh, if you do this, this one will get angry, and if you do that, that one will get angry. That we're trying to please the people of this world, and we are forsaking Allah. And again, at another time, when a similar situation arose, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, he said, you know why earlier communities were destroyed? And people said, no, what was the reason? And the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, it was very simple. They had one law for the rich and one law for the poor. And that was what destroyed those communities. And we see this all around us. And there's a different law for the rich, who can take their family on a countryside outing and then drive the family to a holiday spot, a castle, to test their eyes, to see whether they can drive properly, and then drive back. And all they get is to give a press conference in the Downing Street Rose Garden. Once, close to his death, the Holy Prophet Muhammad asked, I think my time is near. Do I owe anyone anything? Because I want to repay all my debts. And this man stood up and he said, one time when you went to hit your camel or horse or something like that. I was beside the animal and you hit me instead. So I want compensation. And of course, all Muslims flew into a rage. They grabbed the man and they wanted to kill him. And the Holy Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, no, leave him. He's entitled to that compensation unless you can prove that what he's saying is a lie. And they couldn't. So the Holy Prophet lowered his cloak and he said, there you are. You can whip me or lash me and get your compensation. But the man grabbed the Holy Prophet Muhammad and he kissed his back. He embraced him. The Holy Prophet had a mole on his back, which was called the seal of prophethood. And it was said that anyone who could see it, who could touch it, would go to paradise. So he fell to the Holy Prophet's feet and he said he wanted to see that and kiss that because of this rumor. The Holy Prophet raised him up. He said, no. Why you're asking for forgiveness? It was your right. Whether it was by accident or deliberate, you had been hit by my lash. And it was your right to demand compensation. So even his own person himself was not above the law. We are told that, there is rule of law in America and other places. In Britain, the Queen is above the law. The law of taxation doesn't apply to Her Majesty. Yes, she pays tax, but some years ago she voluntarily decided she was going to pay tax. The law doesn't apply to her. American president, he is above the law. No law applies to him. And the list is endless. All heads of state, all prime ministers and so on are above the law. And here is the most successful prophet who brought together the warring tribes of Arabia and created a state that would be equivalent to the whole of Saudi Arabia now during his own lifetime. But he holds himself accountable to the law that he metes out to others. With an announcement, and I make this announcement now rather than at the end, because if I make this announcement at the end, half the congregation is going to leave. Our next Friday service is going to be led by a lady. I took the precaution of locking the doors because ladies pray behind men, and so that they couldn't rush out and realize that, and then make the excuse that they didn't hear this announcement. So I'm not going to get into trouble by announcing who it is. They've got to fight each other. So if you hear any noises after the prayers, before we can shut down the service, you know what the noise is about. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'anil azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim. Innahu ta'ala jawadun kareemun malikun barrufur rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم. واصل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولا تذكروا الله والله يعلم ما تصنعون. Everyone ready?
Yes.
Lined up? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Qil as-salah, qil al-falah, qad qamatis salah, qad qamatis salah. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, ihdinas siratal mustaqim, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
آمين.
والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
ربنا
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا لك
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الصلاة السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله أستغفر الله الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله أكبر الله Thank you very much for joining us for today's Friday service. If you don't see me, well, you won't see me next week, but if you don't see me the week after, you realize that the ladies who are always demanding equal rights, now that they're given the equal right of living the khutbah and leading the prayers, have risen in rebellion and probably killed and buried me someday. So pray for me. Thank you very much. I hope I will see you, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Khuda Hafiz. Goodbye.